it has been rather rough for the Limers. When it comes to the main league, they have DNQ'd for the last 3 years. They had a chance to qualify for 2024, but because their captain Sublime botched the short track, they would have to miss out for another showdown. So they did show some signs of light with 2 golds, both of them including Lime. So let's see how they do in 2025. First up is the relay race, and the Limers will get out to a very hot start. Not only winning the event, but setting a Marble League record in the meantime. As for block pushing, it didn't go so well for them, but they were still in comfortable position. They would then go on to bounce back with a pretty good performance in Swing Wave. And although their captain Sublime froze up in the sand rally, it didn't matter all that much for the Limers anyway. They would qualify for the first time since 2021. Let's see how they handle things in the main league. The first event would be Swing Wave, and the Limers would do pretty good, securing a score of 39, which would be 4th best in the heats and 5th best out of any run in this event. But there is a catch, however. It was only the 3rd best in their group. Had they been in any other group, they would have advanced to the semis. But at last, they don't advance and would start the league in 9th. At least they're ahead of their rivals. Next up would be the Funnel Endurance, where they would sit in Guleim, and they would easily fold, placing last in their heat. Good thing for consolation rounds, because had there not been any, the Limers would have placed 14th in this event. They would gain slight ground and go ahead to finish 11th. They would sit in 11th overall after the event's conclusion, being behind the Raspberry Racers via position countback. Next event would be Hurdles, and the Limers would send in Sublime, who was fresh off of Funnel Endurance, and to no surprise, they would miss out on advancing because of it. They would manage to avoid finishing in last because Azure happened. Regardless, the Limers would drop in the standings, going from 11th to 15th after event 3. Then would come Rodeo, where the Limers would actually look decent, putting up a respectable effort and securing their first top half for this year. But what goes up must come down, as their rivals in the Raspberry Racers will go on to win the event. The Limers would at least move up to 13th after the event. Then comes Sprint, where they would send in Slimelime, who has been on the up and up as of late. In terms of Slimelime, they would get burned in their heat, not only placing last in said heat, but would finish last overall in the event. And watch, Limer fans, as your rivals in the Raspberry Racers will go on to win gold for the 2nd event in a row. Drop back to 15th while you're at it. Next up is the 5-meter relay race, an event that you won in qualifiers, so surely you do something here, right? You don't. Instead, you would take last in your heat. The only saving grace would be that the Razzies would do a complete 180, going from back-to-back first to last, while the Limers themselves would finish in 12th and would sit in 15th overall still. Then would come Triathlon, where they would send in Guleim, who would get completely torched, finishing last in their heat by a mile. And just like Funnel Endurance, good thing there was a consolation round, or else y'all would have finished in the bottom of 3. But nonetheless, the Limers would finish in 12th for the 2nd event in a row and would actually drop to last. Wow. Next event would be Bocce, or Bocce, and the Limers would have to face... yeah, good luck with that. In terms of how they would do, they would actually keep up with the speeders, putting up good efforts after good efforts, and would eventually beat them in the first round. Next up would be the Pinkies. And just like last round, they would keep up with solid performances. And with how things were looking, they'd have a chance to advance to the semis. That was until Limelight went full Limer and would eventually sabotage the team, knocking Lemon Lime out of the way and giving the Pinkies a chance to win the battle, in which they would do. The Limers themselves would finish in 7th, but they would be even further in last, being 14 points behind 15th. For Lasso toss, the Limers would send in Lemon Lime and Guleim, who would do just about that. They're fortunate enough to have their rivals in the Razzies somehow do worse than that. And although the Limers finished in 15th and are 19 points behind 15th, here's a slight positive for the Limers fans. As of event 9, they currently have the upper hand when it comes to the head-to-head record over the Razzies. Better something than nothing. Then would come block pushing, in which they are placed in a heat that involves Team Momo, the Green Ducks, and the rivals in the Raspberry Racers. 3 good block pushing teams. Oh boy.
Big separation between the Raspberry Racers up top. It might have gotten them into second place. Limers will win the heat. Yes, that's right. I said the Limers win the heat.
Wait, so they not only advance out of their heat, but they will also win the heat? Wow. Too bad they would end up returning to Limers' form by getting completely washed in the semis. They would finish in 8th, but would still be behind 15th by a decent margin, with 47 points. Let me put it to you this way. The Turtle Sliders in 7 less events have scored 3 less points than the Limers in 10. That's how the season has gone for the Limers. Next event will be Corn Maze, where they would send in Slime Lime as a representative. Take a guess on how they would do in the heat.
And make it through in second place behind Momo. Pinkies get third, and Oceanics the final transfer spot. Oh, Limers.
They finished last. Even Greg Woods knows about this team's nonsense. It didn't help that they would finish 13th in the event. It would sit at 50 points after 11 events. They are the only team that has yet to earn a medal. Next up would be balancing. Just go out there and have fun at this point.
Limers desperate for a good result. They keep 3 of them on, 2 make it all the way to the end. And that will put the Limers into P1, 375.
They actually put up a great result, and teams are struggling to get past said results, and they're guaranteed to podium. Well, it all comes down to Team Galactic.
Final runner, winner of this event back in 2022. They're only going to get 1 finisher. And only 5th. Team Galactic cannot dethrone the one team that had yet to medal.
They actually did it. For the first time since 2018, the Limers won a gold. Now this is championship levels worth of celebrating. And even better, this would move them out of last place. Then would come Sand Moguls, where the Limers would send in Lime to represent. And they would start off well by winning their heat. And even better for the Limers, their rivals would go on to finish last in the event. And although they couldn't achieve that same fortune in the semis, they would finish in a respectable 6th, scoring double-digit points, though they would still avoid last. Then comes Collision, where they're placed in a group with the other 3 Food Sucker teams. And in terms of how they did, they had a rough time, getting cleared out by their rivals and losing out to the Rangers. At least they found a small consolation in beating Mellow Yellow. The Limers would finish in 13th and would unfortunately drop to last after the Balls of Chaos obtained a silver. And this would also put the Limers out of championship contention. The next event would be Elimination Race, where the Limers would send in Lemon Lime to represent them. And they would actually do pretty good, showcasing the endurance they have in this event. They would even go as far as to win a few rounds as well. And in one of the rounds they won, Razzie of the Razzies would get eliminated, giving us this comedic timing. Their great run would come to an end in round 12, where they would take 5th, which is a pretty good showing still. But because Disarray of the Balls of Chaos took 3rd, and the Limers are in a close battle for 15th with them, one of the Limers fans felt the need to start something with the Balls of Chaos fan section. And just so you know, when it comes to the Limers fans in the stadium, this is not their first time doing this. 2019 qualifiers, where they would throw debris onto the track, and the 2019 showdown, where after their team got relegated, the fans would storm the field. I don't know what's more toxic, the Limers fans in the stadiums or this server right here. And although the Limers are in last with 99 points and are out of podium contention, there is something that they can cheer for. They are guaranteed to not lose the head-to-head matchup against the Razzies. The least they could do is tie. Then comes the final event, Sand Rally, where they would have to send in Lime, who didn't do all that well in this event. They were in top half for the race for about 2 seconds, while spending most of the race in mediocre position. Lime themselves would finish 14th, and the Limers themselves would finish last overall. And that's where I'll have to wrap it up. And although this year didn't go good for the Limers, they do have some bright spots. They didn't lose to their rivals in the head-to-head battle. The best captain standings, not only they finished ahead of their rivals, but they also finished in the top half. In second half points, they once again finished ahead of their rivals. And they won more gold medals in 2025 than the teams listed here. So yeah, the Limers at least have some things to be happy about. And that's all I have for this team. Until next time, peace.